Hello, everyone. The clip you're about to hear is from one of our exclusive Patreon episodes on a recent horror release, and just like all of our other episodes, it might include major spoilers for said horror release, so don't listen to it if you haven't already seen it. You've officially been warned. And if you'd like to hear the full episode, just head on over to patreon.com/horrorqueers and subscribe today. Without further ado, here is your exclusive Patreon clip. Well, this movie to me is a straight-up comedy. It is a straight-up comedy with gore elements and horror elements. I mean, again, much like Happy Death Day, like you just said. I would still call it a horror comedy, but I don't ever think for once that it's trying to scare us outside of maybe the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, this is more comedy horror in a way, right? Like it's leading with the comedy, and then it's got these moments of gore, which is what people quantify as horror.
And my issue, and again, humor and scare, it's all subjective. And I did chuckle quite a bit in this. But, honestly, I think my first example of, a joke that didn't work for me. It's in the beginning when, the girl's getting pounded by that guy up against the car.
The drive-through vagina line?
Yes. And we get the point, right? She climaxes before the guy does. She ends, and he's like, what? What about me? But then she adds the line that's like, yeah, because guys are always so considerate. And I'm like, it's explaining the joke to us. And I feel like there's a lot of that in this movie where it doesn't trust us to get the joke. And so it feels the need to over-explain things or dumb it down. And that was my issue with a lot of the humor in this movie.
I think there's that, and then there's also the mixing of the comedy and the political correctness / wokeness / whatever you want to call it. Mm. And I'm frustrated with the reviews and the responses that I've been seeing where people are falling over themselves to talk about how politically relevant and astute this film is. And I really feel like it's making the same kinds of commentary, literally down to verbiage and lingo. Like, basically, we saw this same kind of commentary in both of Blumhouse's female-directed films, Black Christmas and The Craft Legacy. Mm-hmm. And I'm perplexed that we're not pointing out that it's basically the same joke and it's the same commentary, but people shat all over those two other films and we're not doing it here. I'm not necessarily saying that it's entirely misogynistic, because I do think that the other two films fucked up their third act ending, that it was easy for people to be like, these films don't work. But I do think that there's something to be said for this film being written and directed by men, and those other films being written and directed by women, and those were too woke, and the political commentary was too on the nose, and here it's like, just right.
Yeah, I mean, it is two gay men writing this. I don't know if we mentioned this earlier. It was implied heavily, but it is two gay men who wrote this.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. I do think that Black Christmas is a worse film than this, but that's purely from a filmmaking standpoint, less so from a, it's so on the nose. And again, listeners, if you don't want to hear our thoughts on that, we have Patreon episodes on both that and The Craft Legacy. Mm-hmm. I will say that The Craft Legacy I do prefer to this movie.
Okay.
I feel like this movie was made because one of the biggest complaints about Happy Death Day was, it's this slasher movie, but it's watered down for being rated R.
Right.
And so this was like, cool, let's do Happy Death Day, but make it R. Let's make it gory. Let's have all the fucks. For me, though, the weird trade-off, actually, if I'm going off too far off of where you're coming from, we can go back to that.
Okay.
The weird trade-off for me, though, was that the emotional beats that worked so well for me in Happy Death Day 1 and 2 do not work for me in Freaky. The emotional beats with the mother, literally the first time I watched this, I forgot her dad was dead until we get that scene in the mall.
Yeah.
But sorry, I'll go back. I agree with you. I don't think it's inherently misogynistic. I do wonder if it's because Black Christmas and The Craft are both sequels or remakes or spinoffs or whatever have you to pre-existing properties, and so people were going in with expectations already. Granted, the same thing could be said about Freaky, even though it's not a straight-up remake or whatever of Freaky Friday or The Hot Chick. Mm-hmm. There are constant comparisons to at least The Hot Chick in my mind while watching this movie. And also even all of Jack Black's stuff in Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle.
Right. Yes. Yeah. It's very much a film that plays on your awareness of other films. And, I mean, just to kind of close the loop on the issue, I do think you're right that it has something to do with this film being R-rated. It's got the gore, it's got the F-bombs, all that kind of shit. So I do think that it's easier for people to get on board with what it's delivering. Maybe it makes the commentary and the wokeness go down easier. But yeah, thinking about the emotional beats, I'm inclined to agree with you. I think if only because there's like two kind of standout emotional moments for me in this film.
Yeah.
One is the one that you've already alluded to, which is between the mother and then obviously Millie in Vince Vaughn's body in the change room. And the problem with that scene is that it has to go to like 3 different areas. Like it starts off as a farce where it's like, oh no, I'm going to get caught by mom. And then it becomes this really heavy emotional moment between mother and daughter secretly. But then it has to revert back to comedy and be like, hey, let's go on a date. Ew, mom, no, I can't go on a date with you. And I'm like, it's too much for what, like a 3-minute sequence?
And I think maybe too much is my problem with the film. I was thinking about this earlier because, again, I was trying to come into this like, fuck.
Hello, I'm Shelby Scott, the host of Scare You to Sleep, a podcast where I tell you spooky bedtime stories full of creepy sound effects and music that is soothing yet unsettling to help immerse you into a world of horror. This is a show for those of us who have realized horror can be a strange but relaxing escape from reality. Speaking of escapes, sometimes I lead you through guided nightmares, like a guided meditation, but instead of flowery meadows, I take you on a journey through your own personal nightmare. So come get lost in the terror with me. Listen to Scare You to Sleep wherever you listen to podcasts, or find us online at bloody.fm. Sweet screams.